I'm Zeb Lowe. I'm the director of the content studio at Housing Wire. And today our topic is staying ahead of the curve and anticipating the future in the mortgage industry, presented by Truv. Our webinar today will be moderated by Richard Grieser, the VP of Marketing for Truv. Richard, the floor is yours.
Everybody, if you've come to hear about staying ahead of the curve and anticipating the future in the mortgage industry, you've come to the right place. That's what we're here for. Let me start by introducing our esteemed panel. We have two really exceptional mortgage leaders that have agreed to join us today and talk about this from their perspective. I'm going to give the floor to J.R. Huber, EVP of Sales and Production for Mortgage Investors Group, and I'm going to ask him to just say a couple of minutes about him personally and perhaps a fun fact that people might not know about you.
Thanks, Richard. Yeah, I'm with Mortgage Investors Group, and I'm the head of sales and production. Our company's been around since 1989. We're located in Tennessee, and it was started by two loan officers, Chrissy Ray, Chuck Tonkin, and they basically got together and said, hey, let's build a company and do what we love to do and kind of do it our way. And it started with first-time home buyers and the housing programs associated with those buyers. And then over the years, their families and all of that has helped us become Tennessee's largest lender. And then now we've expanded into 10 states. So we still keep that same culture, do the right thing. Me personally, I've been here 8 years. My journey was also starting as a loan officer in 1996. And what is that? About 29 years in the business myself. And I've been a president of a mortgage company prior to coming here. What I enjoy about this business is seeing loan officers start into the industry and then become successful. That's what I really love to see and put a lot of pride and reward in. Me personally, I found out Richard and I, we've known each other for a little while now, and we both have twins. My two girls are sophomores in college, and quite different experiences. One's at Alabama doing the Bama Rush experience right now, and her second year, and then the other one's playing soccer and getting ready to have her first game of the season this week. So some differences there in their lifestyles, but all good. Taylor?
Well, I'm not currently at Alabama participating in Alabama Sorority Rush. My name is Taylor Stork. I am the Chief Operating Officer for Developers Mortgage. I'm also the president of the Community Home Lenders of America, which is an association, it's a trade group that represents independent mortgage banks. I, like JR, started off in this business as a loan officer in 1996. We got the same timeline. I didn't realize it was 29 years. Thanks a lot. Appreciate that.
Almost, yeah. Almost.
To this day, I am still a loan officer. I still am a licensed person, and I've got a couple loans in my pipeline right this second. So I have been living and breathing the origination space for a very long time, turns out, through a couple different cycles. The interesting fun fact about me is that in addition to doing this finance stuff, I live on a farm, and on the weekends, you'll find me on a tractor, typically, amongst a bunch of horses.
Nice.
That is the first time that I have heard that. What? We're going to have to talk about that, Taylor, after this. That's pretty cool. Hey, listen, everybody, I think we've got a quorum here. I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to kick this off and get into the meat and potatoes about what you came to hear about from these experts. Let's go. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Yep.
All right. So you're here to hear about staying ahead of the curve and anticipating the future in the mortgage industry. So let's jump into it. I think what's on a lot of folks' minds right now is, where are we going? There's a lot of, I would say, different factors that might impact this in the coming months, right? In a very short amount of time. And so I'm going to ask Housing Wire to just take a pulse on the audience. Let's do a quick poll. I want to see how people are feeling right now about the outlook. So we're going to ask a poll, and that's, what is your outlook for closing out 2024 and into 2025. Panelists, you're not allowed to answer because we don't want to sway that at all.
Not yet.
So and while everybody's answering this right now, I'm actually going to ask I'm going to ask our panelists, what's your outlook opinion on the current state of the mortgage market? And you can talk about technology too if you like, but let's start with Taylor. I'm going to ask that question to you.
I mean, we started seeing volume pick up a few months ago, and it has held steady. My outlook is generally pretty positive, but again, I'm a generally pretty positive person, so I always think the business is great and life's great, and the next thing is going to be better than the last thing.
Love it. JR, you have anything to add? By the way, Taylor, that was the shortest I've ever seen you respond to a question in my entire.
I'm trying to just completely break all the rules today, Richard, and blow your mind.
Go ahead, JR.
Me too. Well, I think going into the election, and we're not going to see some major changes in rates and all that is my expectation. I think we'll see a little lift in refis through the winter. Probably next spring, we'll see the purchase market start to pick up. So I think it's going to go in the right direction, just not as fast as I think everybody in the industry would want it to. It's been a long down cycle. I mean, we're starting to see some optimism, like Taylor said, but it's not going to be that swift return to normalcy that everybody's hoping for.
Yeah. In the beginning of the year, I think people were expecting a lot of rate cuts, and now everybody's kind of holding their breath to see what happens in September.
Listen, I just want to say, JR, you and I started this business. This was normal in 1997.
Well, that's true.
This was normal in 1998. This was normal in 1999. And quite frankly, this was normal in 2019.
Yeah. We were happy to see it in 2019. Now it just seems like a long cycle.
Yeah. All right. Well, can I please ask for the results to be shared with everybody? And let's take a look and see how everybody voted here. Looks like we have
I think
the majority.
Cautiously optimistic. Yeah. That's where I would be.
So it doesn't seem like it surprises either of you.
Whoever the guy is or the gal is that said very optimistic, I echo that one.
Yeah, that's you. I love it.
No, you wouldn't let me click.
I wouldn't let you click, so that you get to vote now. I like that you don't influence the vote by talking about how you feel before the vote's done, because it does affect folks' opinions. I've seen it many times. Let's jump to the next question here. Let's kick it off. What does it mean to be 100% digitally data-driven? JR, why don't you start us off on this answer?
Yeah, so we talked about this. Taylor and I were saying, we've always been data-driven, but now the evolution is the digital or the electronic, the third-party sourcing of the data. So doing away with the paper trail that we used to always call it. So, that's where Truv has helped us kind of turn the corner. We want that information from a third-party source up front. And a lot of lenders have that upfront underwriting. Well, that doesn't mean anything if the data is not accurate. So, we like the ability to break out the income, to get start dates, to get job titles, to get overtime commissions, all those kinds of things, and have that in the beginning so that we have the accurate data. It flows through the process all the way to the audit, to the post-close, and delivery to the servicer. And that's really, we wanted to be day one certainty focused for a long time. It's not about day one certainty as much as it is just that philosophy, though, whether it's your appraisal, whether it's any credit information, income, asset, all that just needs to be third-party sourced, be consistent all the way through. And that's where you'll see some time savings. Taylor, what do you think on that?
So I agree with you, and I want to put this into a different context. When I started out as a loan officer once upon a time, but when dinosaurs were still roaming the earth, what I did back in the day was give a borrower a list of documents and say, bring all this stuff and give it to me, and then we'll do your loan application. Now I understand that with TRID, that's not exactly what we can do today, but literally, I would respond to them. This was before we had email. And I would say, bring me, your last couple of pay stubs, bring me your last couple of W-2s, or if you're self-employed, bring me your tax returns, bring me your bank statements for all of your accounts. And I usually ask for one or two other things. And from what they brought to me, I was able to scour through without even having a conversation with them and probably put together 2/3 to 3/4 of the loan application, answering a lot of the information just straight off of the documents. That process started to change. It started to change in the early 2000s with the evolution of DU. And then it changed further and it changed further. And what we found, what I'm seeing personally, is that with the advent of new technology, such as consumer permissions data, as provided by Truv and some of their contemporaries, or through other digital sourced data that we're able to get early, and through the use of APIs to plug this stuff directly into our computer systems early on, we've kind of gone back to the future, right? So what we're kind of talking about is getting back to the point where we look at the data from the primary source, but instead of looking at it, with our eyeballs by sitting at somebody's coffee table and going through bank statements with them while their dog is barking at us. Now we're doing it electronically using algorithms and computer technology.
Yeah, Richard, and also, so I was out doing a couple presentations this week to realtors talking about the NAR settlement and the impact of that. And, I think it was a wake-up call to the realtors that, we need to be evolving. And, one of the things they're doing is collecting more data, more information. So like on the contracts, they're now breaking down what the sellers are paying for. So it's not just seller concessions and is X, it's the seller concessions are going towards now, whether it's commissions, closing costs, prepaids, maybe it's buy downs. They've doubled the amount of lines to capture that information so that they can be more informed when there is a cycle, when there is market movement. And when you're doing a listing presentation, you can explain to a seller, hey, this is why I'm recommending this, or this is where the market is taking us, and where you'll have a better likelihood of getting a buyer. We're getting more information and more data when we collect from these other sources, and we're able to do more things and more predictive analysis of trying to help the consumer. And I think, we want to focus on how do we keep improving that and make the customer experience better too. It's all along the same lines.
Well, I appreciate the plug. Usually when I hear about people talking about Truv and some of the consumer permission players out there is the great savings over the incumbent that they're getting. And you guys are talking about the benefit of having all of the data up front and having it be accurate and what that does for the loan origination process, which I love. I mean, it's equally important. So let's jump to the next question here. This one's interesting. We've all seen recently, just very recently in the news, that a lot of the big tech stocks overinvested in artificial intelligence. And this question is not just around artificial intelligence, it's around automation and a lot of technologies that are improving the origination process. But I think lenders have invested a lot in different technologies in the hopes that it's going to shorten days to close, lower costs for their organizations. And so we're going to kick off a poll to the audience. And while that poll is going on, I actually am going to ask JR, then Taylor, to give their opinion on whether automation has actually resulted in shorter days to close or lower costs for their organizations.
So I may sway voters, but I was actually talking to our CEO, Chrissy Ray, about this yesterday. We were just having a conversation, and it's funny. Everybody has to invest in technology to keep up, and there is definitely a need for it. There's definitely a place for it, but I think the industry as a whole hasn't figured out exactly what to do with it to be the most efficient. And we talked about 25 years ago, we were using the same amount of people to process or manufacture the same amount of loans, and it's even more expensive because now on top of those personnel costs, we're investing in technology. And Taylor kind of alluded to it. You have these APIs where you're plugging different pieces in along the way, and then you're getting your recommendations of oh, well, we're the LOS provider and we recommend these folks. Well, that one that you recommended that you're integrated with doesn't do everything we need. So we have to have a second option here as a backup for 15% of our volume. I mean, it's layers and layers and layers. And I think where we've lost sight or where we actually need to go is end to end in the process, starting from customer acquisition or lead acquisition all the way through customer retention on the servicing side, and really looking at our manufacturing process from the beginning to the end. And I think what I've felt over the years, just not just with my company, but as a representative in the industry through MBA and conversations, nobody's figured out that entire solution. It's, hey, we've got a good solution for, I mean, just think, just historically, even on the credit side, we still have 3 bureaus essentially giving us 95% of the same information, but we have to have all 3 bureaus. And that's an expensive cost in the process. That cost has gone up dramatically. I mean, you layer all of that and it's, okay, where is the savings? Where's the efficiency? So I know Taylor's got a similar opinion and maybe some other examples along that, but I don't know that we've figured that out. And I think part of the mindset is how we handle the technology and training our brains to, like, when I think about the LOS or even data verifications, electronic verifications, it's now task-based. The manufacturing process is task-based. And we've done it so long where we've done it manually. We've looked at everything. We've created different workflows that work for us that are comfortable. But if you follow the LOS task-based system, you'll be more efficient. It's just getting everybody on board with that. Taylor, go ahead. That's a long answer.
What was the question? When looking at technology versus expense versus productivity over time, which I think is where we started with this, and JR, you mentioned that you're a member of the MBA. They have some great data, and a little over a year ago, so they put out a Friday chart. Every Friday they put out a chart, and about a year ago, one of the charts showed, and I wish I'd saved it. One of the charts showed the number of closed loans per ops FTE, and so it was processors and closers, and it might have been underwriters. Yes, it was processors and underwriters and closers. The number of loans closed per ops FTE, and it showed that from 2000 until current, which I think was last year, there was a straight line going down, and the cost of closing those loans was a straight line that was headed at about a 45-degree angle straight up. So what we've watched to simplify this is that over the last 25 or so years, it has become harder to close loans and costs more to close loans. And the technology is not only not keeping up, but the cost of that technology is helping to increase the cost of the loans themselves. And anecdotally, if you talk to any lender, I challenge you not to find somebody that argues with this. We have to hire individuals to teach them how to watch the technology and make sure that the technology does the right thing. And so we watched that in a very simple way. We watched that. We started watching that with DU 20 years ago when they first rolled out DU, and all the underwriters had to learn how to double check DU, right? And they're still doing it today. They still all double check DU and LPA, and that's fine. That's their job. But the point in the statement is, as we add technology to create efficiency, we also inevitably add people to double check the technology.
Yep. So I would say if I had to summarize both of your answers, I would say not really. And I'd like to see the poll results. Let's see if everybody who's attending right now, see if you've swayed their opinions as you guys were talking here. Yeah, looks like everybody's agreeing with you. 71% of the group feels that automation Has not
Well,
actually.
they're saying it helped.
Oh, they're
Yeah.
saying it has. Excuse me. I read that backwards. So, okay. So there you go. 29% are on your side, 71% on the other. Well, that's interesting. I wonder we have a lot of technologists in the group or whether in the audience or whether lenders really feel that way. I'm going to just assume that lenders are feeling that automation's improving their business and shortening days
Yeah.
to close, lowering costs.
Depends on your role. I think up front, it has really helped with the customer experience and providing the ability, to close a loan in 7 days. We can do that if the customer's on board and providing the information. We can work it through the process, and whatever percentage of loans can fly through the process now. Some that have the layers of technology that kind of make it harder, and those are the ones that stand out and probably the ones that get escalated that stick in my mind. The ones that fly through I don't really see.
Well, so let's jump into the next question here. Thanks everybody for the poll. Let's get to some examples. Like, how is technology changing the business right now? That's what a lot of the folks, the meat and potatoes, like what people have come. Can you guys give some examples? I've thrown a couple of examples in the loan origination process on the slide from AI-powered marketing, like, suggesting to a loan officer what they should be saying to a borrower, maybe based on hundreds of loan officer or thousands of loan officer conversations that they've read through and made, with their learning language models, made their recommendations on what they should be saying. A lot of different examples. So I'm going to give it right now, this question to Taylor first, and then JR.
So we're not really using any AI-powered marketing yet. What we are doing is we've rolled out an AI-driven chatbot / LLM source of automation or source of artificial intelligence that enables loan officers to quickly dig through reams and reams and reams of product guidelines and program guidelines and underwriting guidelines in order to get quick answers and get the right decisions as they're trying to work with their clients to structure loans and figure out what people qualify for. It's had a huge positive impact. My folks absolutely love it. And I see that as a pretty big service tool on the front end for my sales team. But honestly, I see it as a huge tool for my underwriting team for quality, because it means they get better loan applications and better structured packages into the pipeline in the first place, and it enables us to do faster approvals.
Can I just throw out there that Tracy Steer's AI assistant is taking notes and throwing bullets into the chat right now and throwing a summary. So I just think it's so interesting that we're talking about this right now and this is happening in the chat. JR, why don't you go ahead?
Well, I think where it has definitely helped, not to be completely negative, but it has definitely helped on the back end with delivery to the investor, with the audit, being able to use AI to analyze and review and make sure you have everything in order, that all your data points match and are completed. That's saving, that saves 90% of our time on the back end there. Where I would love to see it go, Taylor's kind of talking on how do you help the customer too. It would be great if we could take our database and I know that some are better than others at this and managing their database and identifying customer opportunities, but you could get so many layers deep and really if you could use AI to analyze the products, the programs, as much detail as, did they have a second? Did they have down payment assistance? Are they self-employed? And what programs would be beneficial to them, and kind of stack rank, hey, this person might be best suited for a 10% down conforming loan, and then here's what an FHA loan would look like in comparison, and be able to do that with an entire database, and then have a report generate to a loan officer that says, hey, here's your top 10 prospects today, give them a call. There's a lot you could do with it. The more data that is entered and captured, the more robust the opportunities are, and the same with your pipeline. And where I envision what would be great in a manufacturing process is looking at the parameters of a loan. Again, if you're looking at products, programs, self-employed, this, that, all the layers of it, if that could just take a swim lane and go through the process and go to the right processor, to the right underwriter. Maybe it skips a processor because it's complete. Maybe it skips an underwriter because it's a standard straight term rate term refi. And really just that's where I'd love to see the efficiency gained is, a lot of lenders pay a bonus to a processor for volume. That processor is doing 5 different types of loans in a day. If they could work on the same loan and be experts at this type of a product or program and have that automatically funnel to them, you could really gain efficiency. And I think that's where the opportunity lies. I think that's where we're going. But I think it would be really beneficial.
Well, I love the way you guys just answered that question. So that lets people know a little bit about the opportunity with technology and where it could impact the business. Now let's talk about, okay, you've found a technology that you kind of see where the puck's going, technology that you need to invest in. But let's just talk about the trends in the market, right? This is what's happening for mortgage lenders. The MBA releases a statistic every quarter on the average cost to originate a loan. And that cost is going up. It's between $1,000 and $2,000 consistently quarter over quarter, and it's increasing. And if they also release a statistic I think it's every quarter, that the average IMB is underwater on a lot of these loans as well. I think 60% of the market actually just in the last quarter were not underwater, which is actually a good sign. And so, how do high origination costs impact the lender's willingness to invest in new technology? You think about an operator and they've got all these different technologies already that they're using. The average shelf life is like 7 years or so. And you're trying to juggle the balancing act of keeping those up to date and refreshed, or trying new ones that are innovating in this space. How do you balance the high origination costs that's the current situation that lenders are facing with what you need to do? And I'll tee that up to JR first.
Sure. And I kind of touched on this. I mean, being in a cycle like you mentioned, which is actually an improvement, 60% of IMBs being profitable now, but it still holds that the cost of origination is so much more. And it's like, okay, when is the time to really take the deep step back and look from end to end at your entire process? And by the time you do that, a lot of times you're in a situation where you spend a year or two analyzing, and like you mentioned, the shelf life of some of the technology is 7 years. You're like, okay, how do we predict what we need in the future with our limited funds and resources at the moment? I think what you have to do right now is look at your step by step, the milestones in the process, and try and break it down and say, okay, where can we have the most impact? Where can we leverage our technology more? And we're kind of doing that. We rolled in a new LOS a year ago, and now we've got enough information that we can kind of go back and look at the milestones in the process and say, okay, can we automate anything else? Can we avoid going down this swim lane, or this, adding this to the process? And then also now we're seeing where some of the uniformity has diverted. So you may have a branch doing it one way, another branch doing it a different way. Okay, now we can figure out where have they gone and which one's a better process. So I think right now in this kind of an environment, you just have to break it down milestone by milestone. But the right way to really do it to get the most efficiency is look from the very front end of customer acquisition to the very final end of servicing and customer retention.
And rolling out a new LOS is no small undertaking. I would argue that's one of the biggest pieces of tech that you could swap out. I mean, you're a fantastic customer of Truv too, and I'll just give a plug that's our sweet spot, right? Saving lenders cost right now in this market versus the incumbent. What used to be $20 for an income and employment verification is now almost $70 for an income and employment verification. And that's the one time you do it. Usually you do it 10 days before close, you're at 140. Yep. If there's a co-borrower, you're at 280 suddenly. It can go up if there's a mistake from LO who just orders it accidentally, and next thing you know, your file can be somewhere between $250 and $500 for verification of income and employment.
Well, and
And we're
that's
saving about
100% accurate. I mean, that is how we connected with Truv. We broke down that piece of the process and said, okay, here's where we're leaking, or here's where we need to get better data in. Better pull through, all of the capture rates, everything like that. Where can we improve? And so that's one piece of it. And yes, we did have a great experience and an improvement along that segment.
Thank you, JR. Taylor, give me your thoughts here, Taylor.
Well, so I look at this, I try to look at through a slightly different lens. I agree with everything you just said. I think it's important when you're looking at matching revenues and expenses and trying to figure out where you can find leakage and where you can shave expense. But I also think it's important to look at the greater picture and identify where you have your largest expenses and how you can simply avoid them altogether, right? So what's the biggest expense, typical one-time expense that any mortgage company has? It's a buyback, right? If you got to buy a loan back, that's a huge amount of money. Over the last couple of years, we've seen the numbers of buyback requests from the GSEs as well as from aggregators go up significantly. And what we've observed is that a lot of the expense that is the result of those buybacks are often driven by very minor technical details along the way, errors that might not have been picked up 4 or 5 years ago before some of these technologies were being introduced at the regulator level or at the GSE level. And so now what lenders are really trying to do is they're trying to also install technology, invest in technology that enables them to keep up with the compliance process to make sure that once you sell a loan, it stays sold and doesn't, come back on you like bad fish. So I think that part of the willingness to invest in new technology is less a willingness, but more a necessary evil to make sure that you're staying abreast and ahead of all the things that are otherwise going to turn into, a gigantic repurchase requirement that nobody wants to face. So that's structural technology, that's staying up to date on. And so where I'm going with this is I agree that you can save 30 or 40 bucks if you get a VOE one way versus another. That is 100% true. But I also think that it's important to, for instance, get the VOE that's going to qualify you for rep and warrant relief from Fannie Mae and from Freddie Mac. Because quite candidly, I could care less about spending or saving 20 or 30 or 40 bucks to buy a VOE that doesn't give me rep and warrant relief with my ultimate end investor. That's like, I look at the big picture, not the small picture, and I see that rep and warrant relief as a big picture item.
That is a fantastic point, Taylor. I couldn't agree with you more, and a lot of our customers feel the same way. Let's get into the next question here because I want to make sure we get through and just leave a little bit of time for questions. So, okay, let's talk about the roadblocks that you typically see implementing and adopting a new technology. I see a lot of variance in the adoption from our customer base with the different customers that I see. A lot of it has to do with leadership and the way that it's implemented with a top-down versus bottom-up strategy. JR, you have...
hold on, JR, he just blamed us. You know what just happened. Like, you literally just got blamed.
I think it may be warranted with some of the lack of success we've had in implementation. It may be warranted.
I'm making your life meaningful, Taylor. You have meaning in your life, and that's what I'm saying. And so, JR, you have a fantastic story with our implementation and rollout. And I'll let you speak to that if you want. But Taylor, I'm going to give this one to you first. What roadblocks do you typically see implementing and adopting a technology, and how does a lender get past that?
So I'm gonna give I think there's two sides of this coin. And I'm gonna leave one side to JR, which is kind of the internals, right? Yeah. And I have the same internal struggles as anybody else Employees don't like changing the way they do things. They don't want something that's going to take their job away. They don't want to embrace stuff, and that is one set of issues that I think JR can dig into a little bit. I'm going to look at the externals, right? So the biggest external is the ability to connect with the technology that exists. And so what I mean by that is most of us, our core technology decision is not what brand laptop you buy for people. It's what brand LOS you put your production through. And that decision largely dictates what technologies are available to you in every other function. So Richard, if Truv didn't connect to my LOS, I wouldn't be doing business with Truv. And that is an external roadblock that I simply can't overcome, particularly when some LOSs make it extraordinarily difficult for third-party providers to connect with them. And that's unfortunate, but that is a circumstance in our industry. It's one of the reasons that one of them had a hard time getting a merger approved recently. So I think the biggest external is simply the ability to make our systems talk to one another. And without that ability, then the technology isn't technology.
And I'll just add this. You're so right. I mean, just that piece of integration is very hard to solve even for tech companies. Can have the best relations with all the different tech companies, but everybody's got a list of priorities, internal product roadmap developments, right? Other integrations that they're working on. And so to fast forward these integrations for lenders, even lenders who want to buy your product, it is a real challenge amongst tech vendors, not just lenders. You know what gets it moving though, is when lenders push on their tech vendors to get the integration done. So I would actually say that the most effective way to get something integrated is for the lender to reach out to both tech vendors and apply pressure. That's usually how it gets done, and from what I've seen. And this is just my honest opinion. JR.
Well, yeah, I can tie into that well because it's interesting. He makes a great point. So Taylor talks about the connection of the LOS, and we are actually not implemented. Truv is not implemented into our LOS, but we are still having great success. And it's a rare situation. So I'll kind of explain how it came about. Was we had the recommended providers for employment income assets, and as we set it up, we weren't having great success in our deployment of the LOS, and there's all kinds of challenges. Like when you roll an LOS, everybody knows it's gone on a new one, that it's not going to be smooth, and you're always going to have things that were unforeseen. So you try and simplify it by using the recommended providers, but we were having challenges beyond that of the integrated system. So it wasn't the connectivity, it was the success of the providers. And then so instead of, like I talked about this last time, Richard and I talked, was, so as a leadership team, we would have our demos of providers. Oh, here's who the LOS provider recommends. And then we do the demos. And of course, all the demos work. And okay, let's use this. It's very simple. What we didn't consider was the customer experience and the loan officer experience. And so after we identified some challenges, we got recommendations not from LOS providers, but from conferences, from MBA, from friends in the business, other mortgage companies, things like that. Hey, who are you using? How's it working? And what we ended up doing was, instead of that top-down approach where, hey, this is what you're going to use for technology, we said, okay, those that are having the most frustrations, do you want to be part of the pilot group? And we're going to implement this new provider. And so we had people raise their hands, and they were already motivated to make it work better and come up with a better experience. And then when we rolled it out, we had a very good rollout experience with our rep from Truv, showing us what the customer sees, what kind of issues they may have, how to avoid it, how to set up the expectations, and then the loan officer was capable of answering questions. So, and we had the whole list of the eligible providers. So we knew going in, even without integration, hey, I'm going to send you this link. You need your payroll provider password, and then I'm going to pull in all the information I need. And that was a much better experience because we got better data, and then the data flowed all the way through the process. So that was one example of avoiding a roadblock where, and Taylor gives the perfect scenario of how the LOS providers drive a lot of that. And yet there may be vendors that miss out on opportunities, because if it's all about the integration, then you may not even get a shot. But in this case, we got recommendations from other partners in the industry, and had a good experience on that.
I just love to hear that you're having great success, not even with an integration with one of the LOS or POS providers that we integrate with. That's fantastic to hear. Really, and you are. So let's jump in. I want to jump into the last question here to kind of send us off. I used to ask this question on a larger time scale. Like I used to ask this over 3 years, 5 years, and I don't think it's really that relevant anymore. That's why I changed it to a shorter time period, like 6 or 12 months. Things are just so unpredictable. If you just look back at the past couple of years, I don't think anybody could have predicted what's happened since just from 2019 to present. I follow all the leaders in the space, and I haven't seen anybody being able to predict what actually happened. So
I want to go
Taylor's
first.
raising his hand saying he predicted it.
I want to go first. Can I go
All
first?
right.
So my prediction.
Well, let me just ask the question. What is your expectation for technology improvements over the next 6 to 12 months? Taylor.
My expectation and prediction is that in the next 6 to 12 months, Truv will roll out their asset program and get approved for SSV. That's my expectation.
Thank you. It wasn't supposed to be about Truv, but I appreciate you, Taylor.
No, but I need that. I need you guys to get SSV approved.
Yeah. We're right there, right at the finish line.
Good. So in all seriousness, I think that we're going to see a couple of things. And one of them is I am hopeful to see more third-party vendors embraced by the GSEs and welcomed into the Day One Certainty program, specifically into the SSV program that is highly limited right this second. And it's a great opportunity. We need to enable borrowers to use positive rents and rental history. We need to embrace that technology to do that. And in order to really take advantage of some of the advances that Fannie and Freddie have done relative to their missions, we need the technology to be enabled to support us to originate those loans. So we're not quite there yet. And so one of my big hopes and predictions is that over the next 6 to 12 months, some of the folks that work at Fannie and Freddie under Day One Certainty and AIM and all those initiatives push through a number of the third-party requests to get those approvals done. And I'm pretty sure that some of the folks are texting me right now.
Well, I'll throw out there that some of those folks at those organizations, I've been hearing really good positive feedback from lenders about them. Like they are doing, like the improvement that they're seeing and the work that they're doing is really, really great, actually, which is great to hear. JR, you have anything to say?
Well, I may get on a soapbox on this one, but I really think that what I would love to see, and I don't know how realistic it is, but as an industry, we need to be able to open more doors to home ownership. And I think there's an unintended bias of opportunities. And I think a lot of it centers around how the business has been set up for many, many decades as traditional credit versus what the evolution of society. And if there was a way to have some sort of social score where it takes into consideration people that volunteer and people that donate and people that doing all of these other ancillary things, like helping family members, and really, whether it's a cultural bias of not having traditional credit, whether it's a choice of, hey, I don't want traditional credit because I don't want to borrow money, it limits the home buyer opportunities that are available. And I really wish that there was some way to use AI, to use technology, to use any of those resources out there to get a better idea that if somebody is able to have an Amazon account or a Netflix account for 10 years, that shows that the likelihood of repayment, if they have a 401k or a retirement account, things like that aren't seen on a credit report. And the cost of credit has skyrocketed, and the information that's provided is relatively the same. And then you're forced to use 3 bureaus. Now, they're trying to do the buy merge, and that's been pushed back and may help slightly. But I think that there's a real limitation to opening the path to home ownership. And I don't know that enough's really being done about it. So that's kind of my soapbox to end this. And I would love to see technology used in ways to do that, to create more paths.
I think that's a beautiful way to send us off. I mean, everybody's saying it. It's never been harder for a first-time home buyer to get into a home. I mean, prices of homes are through the roof. It's not going anywhere. It's going to stay high, and it's really expensive to do a mortgage at the moment. So, anything we can to make it easier for borrowers to get into homes. I mean, that's the number one source of wealth building in this country, historically, right? And most people's real wealth is in the home. That's how they plan for their retirements. And so I think it's not just, I hope it happens. I think we have to do this as a country. We have to make it easier, because I think
That's right.
the current generation of, millennials and Gen Xs are going to have a hard time catching up. That's my thought. So, all right, everybody, thank you so much for.
Hey, I saw a question on the SSV.
I love it.
I don't have my chat pulled up. I think they were asking what it stood for. Single source verification. Is that what you're talking about, Taylor?
Yeah.
SSV is the Fannie Mae program. Freddie has something similar. I just don't remember the name of it, so forgive me, all my Freddie friends. And what it is the ability for DU and for LP to review digital assets. So to technically review the data that comes through the feed on bank statements when those bank statements are delivered through one of the eligible third-party providers. So when it comes through a third-party provider digitally, and LP or DU can read the bank statements, and it can see that there are payroll deposits being deposited consistently, it will use its own algorithmic math to calculate what the income may be for that borrower, or what the allowable income is for that borrower. And then you receive a rep and warrant waiver saying that as long as your loan has that income in the income box, that the income is approved, functionally approved. So what it functionally does is it creates I don't want to call it a no income verification loan, because that's not the right way to say it, but you don't now have to go out and condition for pay stubs and W-2s, and you don't have to worry that a finding will be reversed on sale of the loan to an aggregator or to the GSE, because you have a rep and warrant waiver saying you no longer have to worry about the income calculation. Your DTI income stuff is approved. That's what SSV is. It's not available through every aggregator. It is available directly through the GSEs and through some aggregators that support it.
Yep.
Taylor, would you say there's a certain type of borrower that these are good for?
Yes, people that buy houses.
Man,
W-2, something with a history on the bank statements that shows the consistent income coming in, and then it does its own formula for taxes, since that's the net income that's seen.
Yeah, love it. Everybody, Taylor and JR are giving their time for all of us, and I just want to thank them both for doing this. Thank you so much. You guys do a lot for the industry, and I just want to say thank you on behalf of everybody. Even
happy to.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
All right, thank you, and thank you everybody. Thank you everyone for joining us today and for being such a good and engaged audience. And a special thanks to our panelists for the insights and for your expertise. We really appreciate it. For those that want to revisit today's discussion or share it with your colleagues, we have an on-demand version that'll be available next week. So just keep your eye on your inbox for the link, and feel free to reach out with any further questions or if you have any feedback for us. So we appreciate your participation, and we look forward to connecting with you again soon.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.